Welcome to the BAVNAH News and Information brought to you by the Bennington Area Visiting Nurse Association and Hospice. I'll be your host today, Marc Miele. There are many different ways to give back to the community. One of the ways that we're going to discuss today is volunteering. Now, volunteering with the Bennington Area Visiting Nurse Association and Hospice, also known as BAVNAH, can take many forms, from helping us out with special events, community outreach, assisting with travel health clinics, and our hospice program. Today we're going to be talking with our hospice and bereavement coordinator, Mary Pleasant, and one of our hospice volunteers, Roberta, about the program and what it involves. And welcome, ladies. Thank you very much for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
So Mary, I'm going to start with you for just a moment. I'd like to know, how long have you been with the Visiting Nurse Association and Hospice?
Well, I started in '97 with the corporation. I've been in this role for about 12 fabulous years.
12 years. How long have you been a volunteer yourself? I'm assuming that you volunteer as well.
Well, I have to tell you, I volunteered for about 2 years after taking on the role to kind of get an idea of what it was like and what I was asking people to give of themselves. And I absolutely loved it, but with my growing family, I just felt like I needed to take a step back from that. So I haven't volunteered in a while, but it's obviously very near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, it's a passion, definitely. What made you decide to become a volunteer coordinator, especially even for hospice in the nursing field?
I actually fell into the role. It wasn't something that I actually sought out, but I'm so happy to be here and be a part of this mission. To be able to be at the bedside of a terminally ill patient is just so incredibly powerful and beautiful all at the same time. So as I said, I fell into it, but I couldn't imagine doing anything else. It's really an emotional, and to be able to work with the volunteers and the patients that I do, I just enjoy coming to work every single day.
Great. Well, it's a nice thing. It's definitely got a strong mission to it. Roberta, thank you again for joining us today. Appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
How long have you been a hospice volunteer?
Approximately 4 years.
And what brought you to it?
Well, I was an RN for many years, and I had some surgery on my arm that left me in a position where I couldn't do one-on-one nursing any longer, and I did not want to go into any clerical field. I wanted to still have the contact with, patients in the medical field to some degree. And when I always thought doing hospice would be something really nice as I get older. And when I saw the advertisement for the training, I decided, well, this sounds good. So I took the training, which was a great experience, and met some wonderful people, and I just couldn't wait to get out there and become a volunteer. And the experience has been wonderful. I just want to do it as long as I can. I think when you're out there in the field, it's a lot different than what people expect it to be. And you have to really enjoy it. And it's very rewarding.
I can only imagine. I'm going to be starting up the volunteer program myself, taking some courses, and we'll get into that because I know that you've got a training that's going to be coming up shortly. What are some of the important things about volunteering your time in hospice? I mean, why would somebody want to become a volunteer for hospice? First of all, for some people who might not fully understand hospice, Mary, what would you say hospice is at first?
Well, hospice is a special way of caring for someone with a terminal illness. It's special because we go in with the philosophy that it's not only the patient that's going through this, it's the entire family. So we're serving the family unit. And we serve the family unit through an interdisciplinary team made up of physicians, nurses, social workers, chaplain, and of course our fabulous volunteers. And the philosophy behind hospice is that we realize the pain that people are dealing with at the end of life is not only physical. It's physical and spiritual and emotional and social.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why our interdisciplinary team goes in to address each of those specific needs for the patient and the family. Our volunteers go in to provide that social support.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of what our volunteers do is they go in and provide companionship and respite. That's their main focus, but they do so much more than that.
Because hospice is, you know, even though it's coming to the end of one's life, as it's stated, you know, it's an illness where curative treatment is no longer an option, but it's living a quality of life as the individual sees that they want to live the remainder of their days. So hospice is just a support system for that particular individuals. And as I think you were about to state, volunteering, and Roberta, you can just let me know if I'm on the right track, is individualized for the person. So in other words, there's nothing specific set for the volunteer program. You know, a hospice patient might just want somebody to come and sit with them. A hospice patient might have a loved one that, you know, needs to go out and do some grocery shopping, or needs to go out and, you know, just even the fundamentals of, you know, getting their hair cut or just something, and they want to know that there's a compassionate person that they're leaving with their loved one, so they can go out and just run out for half an hour or an hour just to do those items, and know that, you know, somebody's there and, you know, caring hands.
Absolutely.
And also, there are a lot of people out there, especially in the nursing homes, who are alone and don't have family. And I always had this little saying that I always felt that no one should die alone. And when you go in there, and even though you don't think maybe that they're aware you're there, you hold their hand, just that comfort to sit there and sometimes read to them, and sometimes maybe I'll sing to them because no one else can hear. And it's sometimes I had a lady who was a devout Catholic and say the rosary all the time. So I would just sit and say the rosary with her, you know, and maybe hours later she passed. But for some reason, people say, well, how can you do that? The transition is actually a beautiful thing in a lot of ways, and it's quite an experience that makes you feel good that you can be part of that, and you know that you've brought these people some comfort at those last hours, and that they weren't alone, you know. And even for the family to know if they're there, it's a great feeling to be able to know that you've done that little part in their life.
And I think that's a good point too, is just that, you know, there are a lot of people who don't have anybody, you know, whether they've been alone all their lives, or whether they've reached an age where, you know, any connections to family members they've already passed on, so they're, you know, they don't have that. So just having that extra support, somebody there unconditionally, it means a lot. Mary, what are some of the things, if somebody is thinking about volunteering for hospice, what are some of the things that they might want to know ahead of time that your hospice volunteers are to do? What you would expect from them, you know, as far as time commitment, as far as what they might be doing with patients. What are some of the things you can give us as an example?
Absolutely. I don't actually put a huge requirement on our volunteers, and the reason being, I understand that life is busy for all of us. So the only time restriction that I put, and the only requirement that I put on our volunteers, is that they volunteer every year for at least 1 hour. And I make it that lenient just because I get it. You know, life comes first, family comes first, school comes first, work comes first. But I do know that everyone who comes into the training has a compassionate heart, and they have the passion for wanting to attend the training. If they don't have that, then there's nothing really that I can do to make them, you know, come to the table with those sort of set, what's the word I'm looking for? criteria already in hand. But throughout the training, I really try to put each of our volunteers in the place of what it'll be like to be the family, be the patient, be the volunteer. So throughout the training, we'll go through intro to hospice and spirituality and bereavement and death and dying. And so each session is just really, really packed full of interactive exercises and conversations, and we take a field trip to a local funeral home. So over the 9 weeks, it really puts you in the shoes of what it might feel like to be a hospice patient in a hospice family, so that you get the idea and the thought of, could I really do this? You know, I don't ever want to send anybody out into the home and not have them be 100% comfortable with the fact that they're going to be a hospice volunteer, and that they're prepared.
So to that end, you have a training program that's going to be starting up. It's on Thursday, March 17th?
Yes.
Okay.
It starts on March 17th, and then it runs for 9 consecutive weeks. We meet for 3 hours. So it's a 27-hour course, which sounds like a lot, but it really flies by.
It does. It does.
It really, really goes by fast.
It's very interesting.
And where's it going to be held?
It's going to be held in the Women's and Children's Conference Room at the hospital.
Okay.
From 9 to 12. And so anyone who's interested should contact me at 442-5502.
And we also have that up on our website, which is www.BAVNAH.org, so they can go to that and still connect to you on that as well. So, Roberta, you went through the training.
I did.
Very thorough program. You felt pretty confident of at least the knowledge of what was to be expected.
Well, you get the basics, but once you're out there, it's kind of, you're kind of, I'm not going to say, you are on your own, but everything is different. You know, every person, every situation. I can always remember my first case when I went to see, oh my goodness, she did not want me there because I didn't know whether she thought I was going to, you know, take over and move her or taking over her life. And I just kind of sat back and listened, and her daughter was explaining things, and she was really upset. But by the time I left there and convinced her I was just there to be her friend and companion, she invited me back. And I stayed with her until she passed, and it was, I guess, I don't know, maybe close to 6 months. And we became very close friends. So you never know what reaction you're going to get when you first go in, so you have to kind of, you know, feel the situation out a little bit, and everyone is different, you know. Sometimes
Mary,
it takes a while.
I just wanted to ask, because you just made me think of something too. If, let's say, a hospice volunteer goes to somebody's house for the first time, and that hospice patient calls you up, or you do a check-in, because you do a check-in with a patient, is that what you do?
We do.
And so, Roberta was fabulous, I want her back here. It's not required that the patient go back, or excuse me, the volunteer go back to the patient, but it's something that the patient can absolutely request. Roberta was wonderful, can she come back?
Oh, absolutely. We want it to be a good fit, and I definitely need to know either from the volunteer and or the patient if it's not a good fit. You know, I try to fit our volunteers with a patient that I think that they would do well with to begin with, but if I turn out to be way off, I need to know that.
Right.
So I encourage my volunteers to let me know if it just doesn't seem like a good fit, and also, you know, I'm in contact with the family, and I want to know if it just doesn't seem to be working, but the majority of the time it is. You know, even in this instance, you know, the patient really wasn't sure that she wanted a volunteer, but the family really needed the volunteer, and in the end, it was a really beautiful relationship.
It was, you know, we did, and she just loved it when I come and would wave at the door and couldn't wait for me to come back, and I would go 3 times a week, and she wasn't eating very well, so, and she wanted her independence, so we would work it out where I would, you know, she'd want to cook, but I would say, no, you know, you help, you set the table. You know, you just kind of get into what they want, and kind of let them run the show sometimes in a little bit, you know. You know, I've played checkers with people, and of course lost many times, you know, you just let them win, or read. Some people can't see and they can't read, and they read the newspaper, or just anything that you kind of feel they might enjoy. And, you know, I also do Reiki. And that's something that some of the patients like to have. It's a very relaxing and healing.
And for those people who might not have a clear understanding about Reiki, what exactly is that for somebody who might be interested?
It's hard for me to describe what Reiki is. Also, it's taking the energy, the outer energy, and it comes through you and passed onto the person that you're dealing with. It's actually not even, you don't really even have to touch the person. And I found so many people that fall asleep on doing it. So it's just very relaxing for them.
Sure.
And also, you know, it does help people that have maybe headaches or things like that, and takes away some of the pain.
Yeah.
So
Reiki is a healing energy, which a lot of our terminally ill patients find a lot of comfort in, because as she said, you don't have to touch, but a lot of the times you do gently put your hands on them, and just the power of touch in itself is incredible. But when you add the fact that you've been attuned to Reiki and you're there with the total intention of passing along your energy to them, and that healing energy is just very comforting to the patient. Many of our patients receive Reiki volunteers.
Well, I want to go back just a little bit to your volunteer program, your training that you're going to be starting up on March 17th. So you say in total it's about 27 hours.
Yes.
Spread out over 9 weeks. What are some of the things that somebody who's interested in volunteering as a hospice volunteer could expect to get from this training?
Well,
and first of all, does it cost anything?
It doesn't cost anything.
Doesn't cost a
so
thing.
Right there, you know, no money out of your pocket. That's a good plus. But what you will definitely get out of this training is a lot of self-awareness. I think that people who've gone through the training have said to me at the end, I learned so much about myself. Just because we do a lot of self-expression, a lot of sharing, a lot of delving into your own bereavement issues, into your own spirituality. And the reason we do that is we need you to deal with your baggage before you bring it into the patient's home. Not that you ever would, because we talk about dropping it at the door before you enter the patient's home, but we definitely don't want any of this stuff to surface while you're in the patient's home. We want it to surface in the classroom. So by the end of the 9 weeks, a lot of self-growth has happened. And the two things that I hear all the time is we don't want it to end, and you know, when are we all going to be together again? Because this group of people that come together for these 9 weeks, you really get to know each other, and you really have this bond that Roberta could probably share a little bit better than I can. But you know, I don't know how many trainings we've had, and every single time I have somebody come up and say, where do we go from here? I don't want it to end. And it doesn't have to, because every other month I offer an ongoing education for each of our volunteers, free of charge again. It's not mandatory, it's optional. Volunteers can come, and the topic varies every other month depending on what my volunteers tell me they want to learn more about.
Right.
So, you know, that may be Reiki, it may be cancer, it may be AIDS, it may be meditation, it may be whatever they tell me they want to learn about that will help to support them better in their role of hospice volunteer.
So you get a lot of ongoing support from Mary and the hospice team.
Yes, and the intensives that she runs are really informative, and everything that we do at the intensive is something that we can use really out in the field, or even for ourselves sometimes too.
And it's just nice to know that if you have a question, or if you're unclear of a situation that's come up, you have somebody that you can contact.
Oh yes, many times.
Now you can also get further training to become a bereavement volunteer, is that correct?
Yes, actually Roberta is one of our bereavement volunteers as well. So the training that we're talking about now, that's 9 weeks. To become a bereavement volunteer, you go an additional 7, and you delve even deeper into grief and bereavement and those underlying causes that really prevent people sometimes from healing or moving through the process of healing after losing a loved one. So it's that much more intense. So we offer that about once a year. I do like to have our volunteers go through both trainings if they opt to become a bereavement volunteer. I have made, what's the word? Exceptions for some people who just really say, you know, I don't want to be a hospice volunteer at all. I don't think I could do that, but I am very interested in becoming a bereavement volunteer, and then we could work with that. But usually our bereavement counselor leads those sessions, and of course the bereavement volunteers would still report to me, and I would give them all the support that they needed, but that training would be run by our bereavement counselor.
Okay. All right. Now, what are some of the experiences that you've had out there? You know, the things that if you could talk to somebody and say, hospice volunteering, this is what I love about it. This is, I mean, obviously hospice can be a sad, very sad situation. But for the people out there who are contemplating becoming a volunteer and thinking, I think I want to do this, what are some of the things that you found very positive and uplifting about what you do and why you do it? And Mary, you can answer that too, because you're the coordinator.
I think I find a good feeling after I leave someone's house, and I know when I'm leaving they're smiling or their family is hugging you and saying thank you. To let some of the caregivers be able to have that little time to maybe go for a little walk. You know, they know you're there. Or somebody, like I said, that doesn't read would like you to read. And it's just such a rewarding feeling. And even when we do have vigil, which is when someone is making a transition, I find that a very different experience entirely. You're there with somebody who you know is leaving this world into the next, and to know you're there with them at this point, it's very hard to describe the feeling. I mean, people say how some people ask me, how do you do that, or how do you sit when someone's passing? It's just amazing that you get this inner feeling that you're helping them make that transition and that they're comfortable. And I don't think I've ever had anything in my life that has been this rewarding to me. And sometimes maybe it's almost selfish because you feel that you're getting this benefit that you're giving. But like I said, I just always had this feeling that no one should die alone, and that's the thing that really is one of the things that I try to go by. And it's amazing what you get out of it. I think every person gets maybe something different, but for me, it's a great deal. It's a wonderful reward.
Now, Mary, one thing that I want to broach on too is that somebody might be interested in becoming a hospice volunteer, but they're not sure if they're emotionally ready for it, if it's something that, you know, they might have all good intentions and think, yes, this is what I really want to do, but then they might start the volunteer training and they might delve into it deeper, and they might find out this isn't really what I thought it was going to be. And that happens a lot, you know, with any volunteer program. So even though space is limited, and even though you would like all of your volunteers to graduate, if somebody just, you know, isn't sure, they could call you ahead of time to get you more details, or for you to give them more details about the program, and talk to them maybe a little bit one-on-one just to see if they're ready. But even if they have gotten halfway through that, they could still come to you and just say, Mary, I'm not sure that this is the right for me at this point in time in my life, right? Absolutely.
I have an open door policy, so my volunteers can come in or call anytime that they have any questions, and that includes anyone going through the training. I actually sit down and do a one-on-one with every participant of the training before the training begins. So I have a clear understanding of why they want to take the training, what their hesitations are, if they have any, if they're scared about anything, if they're worried I might just be too sensitive, whatever might be on their mind. That way, moving into the sessions, I know what to be looking for and observing them throughout the training. And I encourage everyone throughout the training, you know, you're going to learn a lot about yourself. If this ever feels too heavy, that's when you need to call me. That's when you need to set aside some time, stay after, talk with me. So definitely, they're more than welcome to drop the class, or drop it and pick it up the next time we offer it, or just say, you know what, this isn't for me. We want you to know if being a hospice volunteer is something that you can do before you go out into the field. That's why we spend so much time in the classroom.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's probably important for a lot of people to know, is just the fact that it's not high pressure. We're not going to pressure you into it. You're not going to guilt them, you know, into staying into the program, because obviously the volunteers are doing this for the patient and their families.
And it's very unique.
It is.
This is unlike any other volunteer experience that you might volunteer for, being that the family and the patients are both at a very difficult time in their life with this transition that's taking place. So I'm sorry, I forgot where I was going.
So it's a very difficult time for the families in general and everybody that's involved in it. Because I know time is running short, what kind of support do the family members, do the volunteers interact a lot with the family members too? And even after the patient has passed away, do they still get?
So I encourage the volunteer, especially if they've been in with the patient for a long time, to stay on for at least, 2 or 3 visits with the family. If the family then needs additional support, that's when our bereavement volunteers would kick in.
Right.
But we definitely follow our families in hospice up to 13 months. And then after 13 months, if they still need additional support, we're always there. Hospice is always there for our families and our patients.
So again, hospice, although it's an end of life situation where no curative treatment is, going to help out, hospice is still, it's scary, but yet it's not scary, because we're focusing on the individual needs, helping them out. Volunteers are, again, trained thoroughly before they go into the home. They're trained to know the do's and don'ts, and it's everybody has a pretty good understanding of what is needed, but it's also tailored individually. So we've got the volunteer training coming up on March 17th. It's going to be in which room at the hospital?
The Women's and Children's Conference Room.
And what time?
9 to 12.
9 a.m. to 12 p.m. And that's every Thursday starting the 17th for 9 consecutive weeks.
Yes.
They can reach you at 442-5502.
Yes.
They can visit our website at www.BAVNAH.org. They can also like us on Facebook, because I know we've been posting the Bennington Area VNA and Hospice, this training program, up on our Facebook site as well. So people will be able to get in contact with you and find out a little bit more information.
Absolutely. I encourage anybody with any questions to call.
Fantastic. Well, Roberta and Mary, I want to thank you very much for taking the time with me today. That's another edition of BAVNAH News and Information, and I thank you folks very much for watching us today.